Alright, so we got planning board November 13th, we have a quorum, first 13th. What's that, right?
Is it 15?
No, 13th, I was looking at 15. Anyway,
These are 13.
yeah, I heard 15, whatever. First up, we got an A&R plan. The Bolton Conservation Commission seeks to obtain 0.8 acre parcel of land subdivided from a 30 acre open space parcel owned by the town of Berlin off of Peach Hill Road in Berlin. The 0.8 acre parcel is located in the town of Bolton at the Bolton-Berlin town line. So it's open space that is on each side of the land?
Correct. So, the town of Berlin was given open space, and part of that land is in Bolton. And it just happens to also have a conservation land in Bolton and be part of an area that we have trails. So it seemed like the perfect parcel to donate to the town. And this was all facilitated through the Sudbury Valley trustees.
Okay.
So what do we need to do, just?
So you need to endorse the A&R plan. And the town of Berlin's already endorsed the Mylar, which is up there,
Okay.
and then they'll record it.
So where's the Bolton piece? It's the open space in Berlin.
Here, it's just the.
Oh, that was
little,
slower.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Oh.
Thanks for
Alright. Hey, everyone look at that.
Do we need a motion to?
Yep, just like
Okay.
any other A&R.
Okay, I move that we approve the A&R for,
Land off of Peach Hill
land
Road.
off of Peach Hill Road, at the Bolton Berlin town line. Parcel 2.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So just the Mylar?
I have 2 hard copies here as well.
Oh, those guys? Or is it?
I have them right here in my lap.
Oh, okay.
Those are the other. So these obviously have not been signed by the Berlin planning board, however, it's really just for our record anyway. So this is what will be recorded.
Next up, we got Develop Property, Annymore Road, A&R Plan. Planning Board to endorse an amended A&R plan to subdivide parcels A and B from 90 Annymore Road. Parcel B is to be combined with existing lot 3.
So this A&R plan came before you guys back in February. If you remember, or if you recall, the people that own this original entire piece subdivided existing lot 3 into It's not going back to them, it's just staying a separate parcel A. That is just,
Okay,
yeah.
save a couple bucks in Texas.
I'll make a motion to approve the A&R plan for 90 Anymore Road.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
That one's switch. So next up, vote in front of the planning board to approve revised landscape plan. So, this is the decision, nothing changed from what we talked about, right?
Yeah, so a few updates on it though.
Okay.
The tree warden hasn't weighed in yet. I did reach out to him a few weeks ago, sent him all the information. He just hasn't had a chance to look at it, so that's still out there. Conservation did weigh in at their November 7th meeting, and their only comment was, if there are invasive species surrounding the fire pond, which is, the area as you enter, the subdivision to the right, there's the pond there. If there are invasives, they would like for the developer to take down the invasives and put up the trees. So that's sort of incorporated now into that decision. I talked to Peter Bradley today, who's the builder, and because there's sort of all these outstanding issues, and I kind of agree with them, we prefer we just wait and have Rebecca and myself go out, take a look at the invasives, have the tree warden weigh in, and then come back with a clean decision. The other thing too is he had reached out to the abutters at, I think it's 205 on there, Sugar Road,
Yeah.
and they've come to an agreement now where they're just gonna provide them with an amount of money to put up the trees themselves.
Okay.
So that, hopefully that condition will go away as well, and what I've requested is that the owners of that property just send me an email. Yeah, confirming that that's the case, and then hopefully that decision will become much simpler by December 11th or next
Yeah,
meeting.
it's true, it's true, any of it now anyway. so.
Yeah, exactly, that's what Peter was saying.
Yeah.
Fine, hold up.
So we just hold, yeah.
Just hold off, that's
Okay.
the update, and we'll hopefully, sign it in December.
Okay.
We're ahead of schedule, should we do some other stuff, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
I apologize, I put too much time down for a lot of these. We can skip to Harris Farm Road, I don't anticipate anyone coming for that particular business item.
Okay.
So this was facilitated by the tree warden. He had called and asked for the planning board to weigh in. He would like to plant some trees within the cul-de-sac there. I don't see any issue with it. I said, sure, I can pass it by the board. I don't even know that I have anything in your packet
Okay.
relating to it. I think I printed out a map of it so you could see it. And I printed out the definitive subdivision plans that were approved back in the 90s. I don't see anything in the planning board approval that would restrict them from doing this.
Which, is this the one over by East End Road, is that Harris Farm Road? I'm not sure.
It is Coventry Wood Road, East End, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so they want them on the cul-de-sac at the end?
Inside?
Inside the cul-de-sac.
In the island there.
There's
Yeah.
nothing there right now?
There's nothing, it's just grass, and I guess the people that live off of the cul-de-sac maintain it.
Okay.
And they would also, they actually reached out to the tree warden as well, and they were like, oh, it'd be so great if we had some landscaping in there, so we have the tree fund in town, so Mark, and he can
Oh,
use it, we don't use it very
okay.
often, so, he's gonna figure out what to plant there for some trees, but I think it's a good idea. The only thing is, the area is within the 100-foot buffer of a wetland, so I did reach out to Rebecca, and she didn't have any concerns ultimately, so.
How many trees do they?
I don't know, it's really up to Mark, whatever he wants to plant.
So what do we need to make a motion or do we?
I don't think we really need to do anything, he just asked that the board, in case you guys had any concerns, I can relay that to him, but.
Do they use that center for
Snow storage?
snow
I
storage?
did ask about snow storage, and he does plowing for the town, or at least he used to, and he saw no issue with snow
Still, okay.
storage.
Alright.
So,
No comment then.
So on the original plans, there was nothing, they just didn't have any.
nothing, yeah, I looked, yeah. Actually, I can even find an actual written decision for that development, all I could find was the approved plans. So I don't even know if they had anything more than that, so.
What year was that, did you say?
95, I think.
I don't see any minutes in here. Oh wait, is there? No minutes in here, Erica?
And no, unfortunately, I just didn't get to it, in the last week. Perhaps for Harris Farm Road, maybe a vote would be good, just to have it on the record that you're
I'll make a-
amenable to adding
Yeah.
trees or something.
I'll make a motion to, allow trees to be, installed within the cul-de-sac of Harris Farm Road per the recommendation of the tree warden.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess, are we waiting for the Artisans, or they're not coming in?
They're coming, yeah.
Okay, so. Articles?
Nope, here we go.
Okay.
I think you guys can hear us early though, right?
What?
I don't think you guys can hear us early though. Did I hear you
I
say?
see some
wait for the
residents and I
answers?
see,
I would probably,
We probably should be.
I don't know, wait a few more minutes.
Yeah.
don't know who else is gonna show up, but.
Alright, so potential articles, we'll start and then we can jump back to it. So, we cut a bunch of them out last time, anything to do with housing or zoning in that area, we cut out because we're waiting for the Housing Production Plan Committee's report. So we'll have a backbone to stand on whatever we do. So we have correct limit business and industrial zone lines to actual property lines. So do we wanna do a subset of what we did last time, just take out the controversial ones? Take out adult equity and, what was the other controversial one?
I think it was the Kane property. But I think with the Kane, we just need to maybe make it a little clearer.
Yeah,
I think on both of
About
them, we
this.
just need to make it clearer
Yeah,
what it really means.
exactly.
should we separate it, I don't wanna separate it into a million articles, but should we separate out the Kane and adult equity into their own, I don't know, I don't wanna,
Do you wanna
Tank.
leave those albatrosses,
huh?
do you wanna leave those hanging out there?
I would just like to clean up everything we can clean up easily.
I mean, perhaps through a little more public outreach, we'll get more people on board. And then
Yeah.
beyond that, come town meeting, if, residents are still not in favor of those properties, we can take them out on town meeting floor. We could always
Okay.
do it that way.
I think making it clear to people that, what the coverage calculations and where the things have to be cited, and that it would be actually better to have those zoned fully commercial or residential.
Yeah, because I didn't, I mean, even I wasn't clear that the size of the business property was, I thought it was just dependent on the actual business zone land, but it's actually,
No, it's the entire lot.
it's the entire lot.
Yeah,
It's the entire lot, but then
and
the
I
use
tried
has
to
to be
explain
put
that,
in
but I
the.
did not do a good job.
Yeah,
so.
well, I didn't explain it either, cause I thought it the other way around until you told me out there.
Well, I wasn't sure about it,
Yeah.
I think you checked with
The building
the
inspector.
building inspector on it,
So they would allow it to pretty much move off the road more, essentially.
Yeah, well, you take your coverage and you'd be able to spread it across the entire lot instead of
Jammed at the
forcing
front.
jump right up front.
Yeah, right, exactly. So the same thing would apply to the Kane property.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, essentially just go forward with pretty much the same article and
Yeah, I think that's an
I think
easy one.
Work on,
Yeah. Reaching out to
reach out to,
the stakeholders in town that were most concerned, and
yeah,
hopefully we'll get their support this time, and
yeah.
good article.
adopt Mass General Law to allow bond money to be used towards taxes. I mean, that's
Oh, I
easy.
have to look into that one with town
Oh.
council. I don't know if we actually have to adopt the Mass General Law, and even if we do, it would fall under a general bylaw. So it would really be Board of Selectmen, but I have it on the list because I don't wanna forget about it.
Right.
I think it's important.
Bed and breakfast use in residential zone, and it looks like you have an article from Stowe.
I have their bylaw, so my initial research was just to look at all of the abutting towns, and Stowe was really the only town that's similar to us that I could find where they allow it.
So this is their definition: private, owner-occupied house where not less than 4 rooms are let, breakfast is included. So they say, basically below 4 rooms, they don't even care about.
So
And above
That-
4
that-
rooms, it's
That's
bed and breakfast.
taxation.
that's
What?
that's the
That's
state's definition.
Oh, that's the state's.
Yeah, through, because they tax it, so that was
Oh,
their
I
I think
definition.
on here, I think,
Yeah, this is good, yeah, okay, I got it.
Stowe has a slightly different definition, I believe, for their bylaw.
So residential, bed and breakfast, home. Was home or established? What's the difference?
So I have to reference back to the state, it depends on how many, I think rooms you let, so for bed and breakfast establishment, no less than 4 rooms for a bed and breakfast home, no more than 3 rooms. I guess that's the difference.
Yeah, so I guess I would, yeah, I don't know about that, but, you know, I'd be interested in being worded that if it's 3 or below, basically we don't do anything, which is essentially what it is now, but if it's 4 or above, then you need a special permit.
3 or below, meaning you would allow it as of right, or you wouldn't
Yeah.
allow it at all?
If it's owner occupied, 3 or below, as of right,
Okay.
because I think that's basically what it is now. or
We
is-
don't, I don't think we allow for bed and breakfasts right
Yeah.
now. I didn't print this, the schedule of uses, but I don't think.
Well,
it's
so I
on
guess
there.
I'm using what we determined, when Mike Savageau was here, saying that if it's owner occupied, you can have up to 5 different, 5 unrelated, yeah.
I should have printed that out, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was up
now.
to 5 unrelated people in a house, or 4 unrelated, as long as the owner was there, it'd be okay. So I'm just following like those guidelines.
I think he's probably referencing the building code,
Yeah,
but that doesn't necessarily mean we would, oh, I see what you're saying,
That's
You're
for
just-
rentals,
yeah,
right?
Just
Well,
generally
short-term.
speaking.
just generally speaking,
That's how you would divide it.
along those
I
lines.
see, okay.
Yeah, so if it was like 3 or below, because I know there's a couple of smaller bed and breakfasts in town, but if it's 4 or above, then I would say,
That,
we allow it
that
for
seems to be
special
in line with what Stowe does
Yeah.
too. They allow it as of right for certain ones.
yeah, up to a certain size,
Yeah, and they require a special permit from the CBA,
yeah.
I think, for the establishment.
And then that would, kick off the public hearing, and if neighbors had a huge complaint, they would have their, they'd have their time to complain.
Has anyone approached you about this as a,
No, I just know that there is a couple of bed and breakfasts in town that are kind of operating outside of the table of uses, and I don't see anything wrong with bed and breakfasts, If somebody wanted to open up their house to it, I see no problem with it, and then potentially you could even get the rooms tax on top of it. So I don't see any problem with, bed and breakfasts in town.
Would you require, so Stowe requires site plan review for all?
So that's like for fire safety and stuff like that.
Yes, is that something that you would want to require here?
Does
or-
that automatically come into play in special permit, or no?
I have to take a look again. Actually, the bylaws are right there, I could check them.
This is.
Yep.
So I think under special permit, I know we would look at parking and, you know, those type of issues, which, you know, would be part of it. Cause when we do the carriage barn bylaw or whatever, you know, we did site plan review and we looked, you know, we went to different ones and looked at parking and, hours of operation type things, so. I think special permit would cover all that.
Yeah.
I don't know that they'd be required like, ADA type things or not.
Oh, I don't know why I'm looking this up. So site plan review right now really only, is for businesses, commercial uses. So this would be a residential use, so no, right now, no.
Okay, well, what do we do for the barn bylaw? Cause we have like kind
The
of,
barn bylaw is a special permit only for planning board.
okay, well, I'm saying, so the special permit part, oh, so you're saying the 3 and below, what would it be?
If you would, I'm just saying that, I'm just calling out that Stowe, which still requires site plan review. I didn't know if that was something you wanted to
Uh-huh,
research further or.
yeah, I mean, we could just say special permit in general, and if somebody's not kind of changing what they're doing anyway, they're just grandfathered, whereas if they wanna increase what they're doing, then they would need the special permit, right? If somebody kind of has a operating bread and breakfast, and they're not really changing what it is before this went into, well, I guess they were kind of out of line either way, so,
Well, it depends on when they came into
yeah,
to being. I mean, if they were and they're grandfathered,
Oh,
they're
true.
grandfathered use.
yeah,
If it's after zoning, then they're not in compliance and they should be getting a special permit.
right, right,
Um,
yeah. Same thing with short-term rentals, well, I guess maybe that's a different discussion, but bed and breakfast for sure, I don't see really an issue with, as long as there's a special permit in place and people are position to, state their concerns. And if, if a particular neighborhood was heavily against it, I'm sure the board would force it down people's throats.
just looking at other
And
communities.
we weigh their input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, typically a neighborhood knows the goods and bads in the neighborhood and what flows and what doesn't flow.
Yeah.
Looking at other communities, Berlin and Harvard are a no, they don't allow for bed and breakfasts. Carlisle, they don't say bed and breakfast per se, they say renting of rooms, no more than 3 persons as of right.
Okay.
And then obviously Stowe allows it. And then Lancaster, I found their zoning bylaw to be very confusing, I couldn't figure it out.
Let's not do that.
Yeah. No
Okay.
offense to Lancaster.
All right. I guess we'll continue looking at that, but we'll jump out of that now, that is 8 o'clock. We'll go to 147 Long Hill.
As usual, I am recuse myself.
Okay. See you later. All right, so we're gonna be discussing status of construction items agreed upon at the October 9th meeting. Public hearing process to accept any deviations. So that's just to discuss if we need a public hearing or not,
And yeah, and steps moving forward from that.
and then bond reduction request for it. Okay. All right, so
So,
let's
thank you,
go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, for the record, Attorney Kevin Erickson on behalf of Built Best Construction LLC, with me tonight, Mr. Walter Erickson, manager of Built Best LLC. You'll recall at the last meeting, we were tasked with several final items to complete. I believe that was at the meeting of October 9th, including the reseeding of portions of the common driveway shoulders where the seed hadn't taken, as well as the expansion of the turnout at Station 325. Those items have all been completed. In addition, the reseeded areas, when we went to go look, appear to be growing pretty nicely, I think in the springtime, with some further maintenance by the association. Those will continue to thrive. The turnout at 325 meets the dimensional requirements, 25 by 18 now, so
When did you do that?
that was done this morning.
Wait,
That's the turnout.
Was Fred there?
No.
No, that was not done.
when you say was done this one, what was done?
the turnout at 325, station
So
325.
what-
Paved this
what
morning?
specifically?
Yes.
The size was increased, had to be increased approximately 5 feet.
So it was 16 degrees this morning, it didn't get above 30, and you guys were paying.
So, I can get to that in a second,
Okay.
or I can get to it now. So it's a small job, so we don't have control over the paver and their time schedule. So what we did was we prepped that area a few weeks ago. When the paver gave us an indication that it was gonna have to be out there in the next few days because it was November 14th coming up, we understood there were gonna be no extensions of that time period. We covered that prepped area in hay, so that prepped area would not get frozen. They paved this morning, they felt comfortable with the job. We're proposing, in any event, in our bond figure, to hold back the full amount of that cost times the 1.5. So, to ensure that it gets through the winter and into the spring.
Okay.
You know, again, timing's tight, and we obviously can't control the weather. I understand they're not ideal conditions, but this is a paver with 29 years' experience, and they felt good after it was done, that it had been prepped and that it's gonna hold. And in the event that it doesn't, we're still proposing the board will have security for that. Okay? Also, after the last meeting, staff was reaching out to town council. We understand and reviewed town council's opinion that short of a determination from the building inspector, which at this point we don't think is the most effective tack to go, because certainly this board has quite a history with this file, is very familiar with it, he's much less so, that he's recommending a public hearing for the final acceptance of the as-built and any modifications to the final plan. So we're okay with that process. We can get that process started with staff and with an eye towards having a public hearing probably early 2020 at this stage.
So that's to change the slope, and what else?
No, I think it's to allow approval of the as-built, which is not conforming
With
to
the
the.
deviated.
Right, any
To
other
the design,
deviations?
Well, but I'm saying we would have to know the deviations, that's what deviations we're talking about, the 8% versus,
Correct, the 4%, and then, the fact that a portion of the driveway isn't crowned.
right?
But that doesn't require, that having a super elevated driveway is allowed under your regulations, so you have.
Yeah, no, it's just, it's different from the design plans. So
Right.
basically, this would, is a mechanism to allow the as-built to be approved, even though it hasn't met a couple aspects didn't meet the design.
Yeah, okay.
So in any event, you know, that process will have to get underway, and we'll, like I said, we'll work with staff to coordinate the timing on that. Obviously, it's a public hearing, so there's a notice process and notification of butters as well as a publication requirement, so the lag time may be, you know, into early 2020. We have also submitted for the board's consideration a request to, for a partial release of the bond. You'll recall that the tri-party agreement calls for the applicant to be able to request partial releases upon completion of items. At this stage, what we're proposing for the board to hold back is the repaving of the turnout at 325, the patch of the paving around drain manhole 1 for the same rationale, just so the board can see that that goes through a winter without any issues.
Sorry, can you just, tell me which items you're looking to hold back?
Yes, do you have
Sorry.
a version that here, I don't know if this is easier to see, this is 2 pages. I think it's what you may have, but that might have printed out, because it's an Excel spreadsheet, that might have printed out with a second sheet. I'll just give you guys these. I think I have enough. And then there was a line item for $400 for the removal of silt fence that's non-jurisdictional to the wetland area, so any silt fence that's not jurisdictional to the wetlands, when that can come out, take out. Fred had a holdback from the last proposal of 400, so we've left that in there. We've noted all the other items that have been completed, and then on the drain manhole and the turnout, we've included the cost of those, and we've included the multiplier of 1.5 times.
Fred, have you got a look at this?
Yes, I did.
You wanna go through it with thoughts or concerns?
Do they have mine?
They have your copy.
Okay, so
Is
if
it- is
you
this
had,
one?
That's from Fred.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
from
Thank
this
you.
afternoon.
so just to bring you up to speed on what you have in front of you now, it's Walter's estimate. If you look at the second line, it has a date and Walter, then HEI. So the date of 5/16 was the last bond reduction we had put together. Okay? If you remember, if you don't remember, that was, ended up being a total of $29,530 back in May.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have Fred's. Erica, did you send that to me?
You know what, no, I didn't get a chance this afternoon.
Can I have
I
a
just-
copy?
Yes, let me print one, this has my,
Does
my
Mark have one in his
comments on
packet?
it.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, that was good.
Sorry, excuse me, I don't know.
Why don't you take that one, and I'll go through
Okay,
it.
all right.
Thank you.
Just-
Might have to get away with that one. All right, go on, Fred.
So under 5/16/19, that's a listing of the costs, the bond dollars on the bond estimate that was prepared on May 16th. And that was for $29,530. Why it's different at the bottom, a total of $31,330, is I've added in the last two items of $900 each, was the two items Kevin just explained.
Okay,
I had to put them in there just to get everything in line with each other. So prior to this week, those two items weren't part of the bond.
okay,
So that's where it brings up to 31,330, okay?
okay, yep,
In the next column, these are Walter's responses to the different items, completed, completed, so forth and so on, okay? Then I have my cost and my comments associated with the costs. So now we can discuss that.
okay.
So the
So
first
anywhere-
item,
Sorry, I was just saying, anywhere we have zero, you're agreeing that it's completed and?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the first item is the top course of pavement. You can see, basically, I'll go right to my comment. This has to do with if and when it's decided that the road has to change, that won't be decided at the beginning. We done the profile, coming in on 4% and so forth. So that won't be decided till a public hearing,
Okay.
correct?
Wait, I'm sorry.
He's saying that you can't say the top course is done until the public hearing for the as-built is done.
Accept it.
Oh, accepted,
Accepted.
oh, okay.
So if it isn't accepted the way it is, this deviation, then we should, as a town, have money in there to cover the cost of it. What that is, I have not figured out, or come up with. So I'm not putting a dollar figure next to that. I think that has to be discussed tonight, if a dollar figure should be, and so forth and so on.
Okay, go on.
So the next couple items are completed, both zeros. And then on the loam and seed, once again, it has been seeded this fall. Grass is coming in. Usually we wait for the two growing seasons, so my comment is to be inspected next spring.
Can I, as we go along, would it be all right if I
Yeah.
respond to some of these?
That's okay.
On the first one, I guess we can talk about that a little bit later, but on the lumen seed, so this area has, at this point, we hydroseeded it this summer, we reseeded it 2 more times after that. We all agreed that when you look at the plans, the requirement is lumen seed. So we've done more than what's been required. I don't agree at this point that we wait 2 seasons. There's nothing in the tri-party agreement that suggests that that's the standard for releasing money there. So I just want to note that I'm adamantly opposed to keeping any money for lumen seed.
Go on, Fred.
The next item, we agree on the $400 for the removal of erosion control. The next 5, we agree are completed.
Yep.
And then we come to the plantings, and some plantings were put in this fall, some additional plantings to get up to the required numbers. There are still 2 to 3 trees that are still only 1 inch in diameter instead of the 2.5 inch diameter trunks. So that has to be decided whether that is 100% adequate, or should there be money left in the bond.
So I think the way I would respond to that one is, your regulations and your bylaws have nothing about landscaping on common driveways at all. And so, you know, and more to the point, on August 14th, this board accepted the landscaping. We overplanted on the shrubs, we overplanted on the trees. So again, I'm opposed to any holdback as it pertains to the plantings.
All right, go on, Fred.
And the next 2 we agree on. The clean the site, there's still stakes, grade stakes, where the basins were, I don't know if you remember when the detention basins had to be regraded, the tops of them to create enough storage, and also some grade stakes along the swale that's still there and haven't been removed. The as-built plans, they theoretically are completed, but they aren't. They have to have this turnout changed on them, the extension of this turnout that we just talked about being paved this morning. So they aren't 100% done. The next one on the swale, that's the new swale on the left side as you drive in, that was installed to intercept runoff from coming across over the driveway. So that probably should be looked at, and how, if it does do its job in the wintertime too, instead of having the sheet across the driveway. That's what I'm suggesting. The next 4 we agree on, and the last 2 we agree on.
Okay. So I guess we go back up to the top,
Yeah.
so the top 4th page.
So, you know, we've discussed, as this board knows, the slope, more times than I can remember. I mean, we started this discussion back in April when we first submitted the plans. It was discussed in May. Our engineer submitted a letter indicating that it functions as intended and was not unsafe. That was concurred to by the town's engineer. The board agreed to that in May. The board agreed to that again in August. And even at the last meeting when we were talking about process, the board agreed, yes, this is a process point, but we agree there's no reason from an engineering standpoint or a public safety standpoint to disrupt that driveway and to tear up that area. So, I have an objection to keeping that holdback in there. I understand from a process standpoint where Fred's coming from, but I think, to be honest with you, it's been so well vetted that, we're gonna go through the public hearing process, but I don't think there's a danger or a need for the security there.
Eric, do you mind if I just chime in for
Yeah,
1 second,
go ahead.
just before we get too far into the detail of this? When I went back to look at where we were at with the bond being held with the tri-party agreement, we have a little over 29,000. So we don't technically have a 1.5 multiplier accounted for right now. So that's my biggest concern.
Well,
You
that's
do,
fine.
sorry, but Fred's acknowledging all of these items here being completed.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I mean,
Yeah, so I actually I added that up today because I was curious as well to see if there was any wiggle room there. So when I add up, based on Fred's estimate,
Completed
of
items.
completed items, essentially you still need to hold $24,300. And then if you multiply that by the 1.5, that gets us to 36,000, which is still more
than what
To-
we're currently
To
holding.
get there though, Erica, you have to say that the board's justified in holding $13,000 for plantings.
Right, that's why
And you
I'm saying that
can't
was
justify
from
that.
Fred's estimate.
No, but Fred's not estimating 13,000, he's got question marks next to the plantings.
Yeah, with, just some reduced
He
numbers.
just, I mean, I think Fred acknowledges only several trees that have been planted recently. The rest of them have been over there for well over 2 years. Tri-party agreement's not there, by the way, either to hold money for 2 years after planting. So,
Well, let's just go through the question marks, so, I know it's a process point, but we should wait to the hearing, just,
so let's say we hold the full 3,200 there,
yeah.
okay? So I add that in,
Let's not do it piecemeal, let's just go through the question marks,
okay,
and then we'll do it at the end.
okay.
Loam Spring to be inspected next spring. Erica, what's your take on, you know, on this? Are we to say that loam and seed is enough, or are we supposed to wait for grass the following year? I mean,
I think this one, they give an honest effort of doing it 3 times. We talked to them about that, and we were pretty close with saying, you know, if you were to do it a 3rd time, like, we're gonna just be okay with that. I don't feel holding this one would be appropriate.
I concur.
I mean, that's basically what,
Yeah.
the gist of it is like seed one more
They
time.
did it 3 times,
And looking at these,
Which we appreciate.
yeah.
and we saw,
So,
the pictures kind of show at least something growing.
Yeah, actually, and some of that, you know, but these are probably better. I thought I printed some more out. This is along the guardrail and further up the station when you're coming in. Before that was all dirt. It's coming in.
These are from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I thought I had more
Yeah,
recent ones
bunch
than that. Oh, wait, here they are, I'm sorry. Not this one, this is the asphalt. That's further up. And then.
this is
But yeah, I think we're agreeing on the,
Yeah, I drove by there, I wanna say up to one of the meetings and didn't look that bad.
So is there anyone on that one?
yep,
The next question mark is the trees, and the plantings. So we originally held that 50% of the 26,000, leaving us with 13,000. And so Fred, how many trees are in question right now?
I think there's 2 or 3 size-wise, and then there was maybe 10, 12 plants that were planted this fall, Walter?
And
I think we had 90, there were about 96 that we counted when we were out there, and there was supposed to be 104, but we ended up going out there and planting extras.
So how much, so that's shrubs, so that's 12 shrubs and 3 trees, is that what we're saying?
I believe so.
And how much are the shrubs each, what was that, how did it break down?
Backways is something in the $35 range, if I remember correctly from one of the
That's with,
numbers.
that's with cost to install, or?
I don't remember what, there's what, you had a price from your supply, what that was here, just to buy them, I believe,
I
right?
think it was $35 for the shrub,
To
and
buy 'em.
$150 to $200 for the trees.
So that's 420 for shrubs.
And then trees, 150, so
That's
450,
450.
let's round up to 1,000 maybe. I don't know, I mean, should we include installation? Installation is on top of it.
It's usually a 1-to-1 ratio or double, in supply and.
So if we say
and,
970,
labor.
970, so that would be 1940. 40. 13. Would that be fair, Fred, or?
I believe so. And even just if you want to read the numbers 2,000, that's up to you as a board.
Okay. The next one in contention is clean the site, so we'll
I'm
go,
not gonna, I actually don't even think I flagged that, it's $400,
okay. And then the as-built plan, which I guess
I
technically.
think it's high, but I don't, at this point,
Well, I don't disagree with you, Ty. The thing is, we shouldn't have released anything when it wasn't completed. That's the, we gave a portion release, we should still be holding back.
Until it's finally.
Whether it's $200 or $300 or $1,000 is still,
Okay.
it should be 5,000 still,
And then
is what I'm getting at.
I think inspecting that swale during the winter is probably fair. Danielle, you have thoughts on that?
My thoughts are is if you have a lot of snow, how well is it gonna?
That swale, since we regraded it, rebuilt it, is very well defined now, so I really don't think it's gonna be an issue. The first time, when the landscaper did it, it wasn't quite as
Yeah,
deep as it
it was
was on
very
the
shallow.
plan. But the second time, it's,
Anybody else on the board have thoughts about we should hold it through the winter?
Can I ask a question to the others? How does the swale seem to be working now? We've had some rain.
I think we haven't had a lot of rain, and,
But we had some storms that were.
we had catch basins filled up almost to the top, so a couple of times I guess we did have a lot of rain. But, when we saw it most in the past was in the winter, when we got a ton of snow buildup and melting, and then it would run across the driveway. I don't know if it was, I think it was over the curb and also seeping under the curb. So that's when we really saw it on a daily basis.
And that's when it was most dangerous, it wasn't, it would freeze.
And the kids walk down the driveway from school and up and stuff.
so snowplow, snow that piles up on the side is gonna melt. And in New England, you're gonna get ice. I don't think the swale's intended to stop snowplowed snow from running along the driveway.
No,
It's on the other side of the swale.
Yeah, it's surface.
Yeah.
Right, but if the road was crowned, then it would at least have some of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
right?
but
Swell is a workaround.
But the
So
crown, but no, the crown is, the crown's secondary, because you can crown a road in Bolton, or you can super elevate a road in Bolton, and in fact, the vast majority of this roadway was always intended to be super elevated. Over 65% of this roadway was approved as super elevated, so, I mean, I don't agree, but you're holding, you know, the one, let's maybe move on.
Can I say something about the super elevation and the cross slope, cross and the crown is, when you have it super elevated, it's going across the 12 feet of the driveway and shedding off the side. If there's no curb there, on the 65% of the driveway Kevin's talking about, if there's curb along that portion of the driveway, it would drain across and then run down the gutter. And then in this case, it's turning, when it's at its full amount of water down to the low point, so to speak, it's turning and going across. If it was super elevated, if it was crowned, it would stay in the gutter and go to the catch basins, of course, and wouldn't go across. So I understand what Kevin's saying, that your driveways throughout the town, common driveways are super elevated, but they don't have curbs, so they don't, the water doesn't accumulate as it goes down the gutter line. It's going off the road across, for every foot of length of road, it's gone. And taking care of this is for every foot it's going and stopping on the curb and running down the curb. If it wasn't, if it stayed on the left side as you're driving down and didn't go across, we wouldn't be talking about this, even though it's super elevated in certain points. It's because the accumulation of it, at the point where it accumulates, it's super elevated and it goes across the road,
Okay,
So we can.
across the driveway.
We'll leave it.
okay,
So then, we agree on everything else.
yeah.
I counted out 9,800.
So that was,
3,200 for the top course, 400 for erosion control, 2,000 for trees, 400 for cleaning, 1,000 for as-built, 1,000 for soil inspection, and then 1,800.
so go through it one more time, so 30,
3,200,
yep,
400, 2,000, 400, 1,000 for as-built, 1,000 for swale, 900 for the manhole, 900 for the turn.
what was that?
I came up with 9,800
I
for someone.
did the same thing.
So you, the 2,000, that's just a roundup on the plantings, so
Yeah,
it's 9840.
yeah.
Yeah.
So 9,800?
9800, 1.5 is 14.7.
Okay,
Let me speak again.
yeah,
The only thing is it's more of an arbitrary number, this first 3,200. We're saying keep it in, we don't know if that's how accurate of a number that is. If it has to be reconstructed. It's probably a good 150 feet of the driveway has to be reconstructed to make it work. So
I
that
understand,
32.
but I think this is at least a good faith effort of leaving something.
Okay, I just want to let you
Yeah,
know,
no,
the number is,
Is not
can't
necessarily
be compared to
accurate
what's
of
there
the-
right
I mean,
now.
if we
Okay.
actually had to redo that to meet the 4%,
It would be a lot.
how much, I mean, that'd be, what would that cost?
Well, right now, it goes like this,
Yep,
right? It would have to go out first and then start coming down, so you'd have to take out the curbing and the pavement, get rid of it. Fill the gravel base up some more, in some place probably 1.5 feet maybe or something, and then repave with binder, curbing, and top course.
It's repaving 150 feet of road, is what you're saying.
Not just repaving,
But yeah, also.
And add-
reconstructing
Yeah.
150 feet.
I mean, I
Okay, I'm
mean, I
just
think we
saying.
talked about this, I don't think we want to go
Here,
there.
can I just make one other comment as
Yeah.
well? One other thing that I haven't researched, Kevin may be able to chime in on this being an attorney, but one other concern I have is the fact that we have to go through this special permit hearing process now. That opens up the board to an appeal. If you decide to accept those deviations, that could get appealed and that decision can get overturned, and I don't know where that leaves the board at that point.
Appealed
I am a little
by-
concerned about that.
Appealed by who?
A resident,
To the ZBA, is that what that
I don't know if
comes
it's to the ZBA or if it's to a court, so I don't know, if that gets overturned, are we setting ourselves up, for a problem later on? That's my other concern.
Problem, how so?
And Kevin might be able to.
Well, I guess I would answer that yes, during the public hearing process, a decision that the board makes could be appealed. The boards don't generally defend those appeals. It's incumbent upon the applicant to defend the appeal. So, most of the times the board's sort of named as party of interest only. The board's not gonna spend any money fighting an appeal on this. I think, to be honest, the amount that we've vetted this issue, from your engineer reviewing it and determining it's not a safety issue, our engineer vetting it and determining it's not a safety issue, a decision at a public hearing that's contrary to that, at this point, with the information the board have, would probably be the danger for an arbitrary capricious decision and not the opposite. And so, and in theory, the people with standing would be, many of the residents are on record as having said, we don't wanna have that disruption and tear up that roadway. So,
Alright, so we're currently hold 31,
29.
20, well, okay, right, because we don't have the 1,800. So we're currently holding 29, we're talking about holding back 9,800 plus the with the 1 multiplier, it'd be 14.7. Does the audience have anything else to say?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to address that issue with regards to the potential for an appeal. My name's Paul Haverty. I'm an attorney with Blattman, Bobrowski, and Haverty. I represent Kevin and Melissa Solen of 151 Long Trail Road. I have a significant concern with the potential that somebody could actually appeal any decision that comes out of this board. And I think that this board's biggest risk in that type of a hearing process would be to predetermine what your decision would be as part of this hearing. I think that you absolutely cannot make a determination now as to whether or not you think that you would approve or not approve a special permit request, a modification request that hasn't even been filed yet. And my biggest reason for concern is if the bond is released and if there's an insufficient amount of bond that remains to cover the work that has to be done, and this board either for some reason chooses not to grant the modification request or it is appealed, it's gonna be my clients, they're gonna be left holding the bag in terms of completing this work because the money for the bond will be gone. And certainly, as Mr. Erickson has stated, generally in these situations, the board would not defend that decision. Well, unfortunately, I don't think that if the bond has been released, that Mr. Erickson or his client will be defending that decision either, because there's no skin left in the game for them. So I have a very significant concern with the fact that my clients could be left holding the bag to cover all of the work that Mr. Hamway has just said would still be needed to be done if this particular modification is not granted. So I would ask the board to actually make sure that it leaves a sufficient amount of money to cover the actual cost of the work, because I don't want my clients to be stuck doing it themselves.
So, my response to that would be, we're not, at this point, anywhere near a full release of this bond. You're holding $15,000 at this point, under this analysis. And the board is adequately secured, and believe me, that's skin in the game for my client. I'm going to be coming back to get the rest of that money.
And my response would be to ask Mr. Hamway, do you think $15,000 is sufficient to cover the cost of the work that you just described?
I haven't looked into, we just got this estimate yesterday, and I haven't looked at how much it would cost to reconstruct that. So I don't know that. My suggestion is that it doesn't get taken care of until that's done, until there's an estimate prepared. Either by Walter first and then me to review it, or I will just do it myself, but.
Or we go through the hearing and just,
But that has nothing to do with, that doesn't have anything. It's still, tonight, it either should wait until the hearing to determine if that, if the,
There should be
a minus
specifics.
9,800 should be released, or, because if, just as a number, and I'm not saying it's 20,000, let's say it's 20,000 to do it, and it's decided it has to be redone and so forth, there's not enough bond. So until we know that number, it's hard to make, my opinion, hard for the board to make a determination on how much should be released.
Can I also just add, my understanding is, Lawrence Lilly, 147 Longhorn Road. My understanding is also that the slope isn't the only deviation. They also didn't crown it, they also haven't also the turnouts aren't to where they're supposed to be from the as-built. So there's other issues that aren't being, that aren't completed, that aren't done to what their plan was supposed to be. So I think if they had to do all those over again, there's no way that money would cover it. Also, I just want to mention that I think you brought up the concerns with paving in temperatures in the teens. I completely agree. I also would just like to say this was done before, they came before 7 a.m. They're not supposed to start work before 8. I didn't realize the only way to get that on the record is to call the police. I felt like that was kind of an overreaction. Now I realize if I wanted it on the record, I should have called the police. But, you know, I mean, if this goes to appeal, or if this, you know, goes through that process and it's determined that some of this work needs to change, I'll say it for the 100th time, I don't think they should be trusted to do that work. I think the bond money should be taken
Mr.
and given
Chairman,
someone else.
I'm really
Slow
tired
down,
of the
slow down,
character
hold on.
assassinations though. I mean,
I didn't say
Celia's
anything
been
about his
doing this.
character.
it is saying,
She
just hold on.
she insinuated that my client can't be
Alright,
trusted.
just hold on.
I am saying that based on the record of having done work and having to redo it several times, almost everything on this list has had to be redone. I still strongly feel that if we have money left to fix the issues that might come up, I don't think they should do it. I know we're not at that point, I'm not trying to argue that. I'm just saying, where we are now, there's still significant chance that work needs to be done, and the bond won't be there if any is released tonight.
So I just, Another avenue to look at this is at least just adding up the stuff that both parties, or at least, Fred and Walter agree that have been 100% completed. That's around $7,030. It seems,
So my question is, Fred or Erica, so we have a punch list of items. And each one has a particular cost to it. And if they finish, say, 99 out of 100 of them, but one of them's not finished, can the one that's not finished absorb bond money from all the other items? Am I wording that correctly? So if they finish most of the items, for whatever bond that's associated with that, but one's not done, but it ends up being, costing a lot more than what we're holding for it, can it consume all the other items that weren't done? So
Can we use money allocated for one thing to pay for a different thing?
My opinion is yes, I
Yeah.
mean,
Thank you.
there are deviations in the plan, like Fred was stating before, that we, at this point, just don't know what the cost is. If the determination came back that Walter had to fix it, or if there was an appeal where your decision to accept the deviations was overturned, I think it's prudent to have that money in place. And I'm concerned about releasing money prior to that public hearing process.
Eric, also, we have done that in another project where over time, there now has required a lot of repairs. So the bond has, of money released, the new bond estimates have been established that require these new items, if you wanna call it that, to repair the work. And the bond is based on all this repair work too.
But Mr. Chairman, we've sat with this board, done things, everything that the board has requested since last spring. Some cases 3 times, spreading new loom, hydroseeding, doing new grass, mowing the detention areas. A lot of those things that we didn't even think was appropriate. And we've tried to comply with everything that the board has asked to do, and we have. There's one outstanding issue, the $14,000 that's remaining there, at the least, would be able to take care of that.
You're holding, just for way of example, tonight we've agreed to, $2,000 holdback for trees because the caliper's off, but they've been there for 2 years. We've overplanted the trees, we're not getting credit for that. There's a lot of money being held back.
can I ask another question about, so the slope? We have discussed it, and we've, just, the residents don't necessarily want it ripped up. We, I think we looked at the safety, so it's not necessarily an issue. What process during the hearing, I know we still have to do the hearing, but what different information will come out during the hearing that would change our stance? Are we gonna get new information for the hearing? I'm asking you, Fred.
No, not that I know, not that I can think of.
Yeah.
It's taught,
Mr. Chairman, if I could address that, it would be a formally noticed public hearing, which is not what this process is in
No,
front
I
of the board
understand.
right now. So you may have people that show up for that hearing that do bring some sort of perspective or information that you're not receiving right now. And again, from my client's perspective, they don't have control over every other party that has an interest in this roadway. So it may be a situation where they might show up at that hearing and say, we don't want this ripped up, we want you to approve this modification, and someone else might take an appeal of that. And then again, my client remains on the hook for any costs associated with doing that work at that point. So I don't think it would be appropriate for this board to take any action without knowing what the cost associated with repairing that, if it's necessary to be done.
I understand what Mr. Haverty's saying. Respectfully, I think it's a far-fetched hypothetical. At one point or another, pretty much every resident has come to a meeting here in this process, and we've talked about this slope every single time.
But isn't it not just the slope that deviates from the plan? There's other things that aren't to the plan. So am I correct in that? I mean, there are other things that could be,
Well, I guess, yeah, I mean, there is, there's
It's
the,
the
there's the,
crowning.
there's the crown.
right.
But the other
and
things
the-
are
There's a-
allowed under the board's regulations, where this is the only one that would require a public hearing. for
I mean, the public hearing is just to adjust the as-built,
Yes.
essentially.
But if it were minor modifications to it, we wouldn't necessarily have a public hearing. Is that
Correct.
true?
If the as-built in substantial conformance with the approved plan, you
Yeah.
wouldn't. However, the deviations, we're calling them deviations, they're not in substantial conformance, so therefore you have to hold a
Yeah.
hearing.
Well, actually, I guess I'd correct that. No one's made a determination about substantial conformance, because the only party that can do that, I believe, is the building inspector. We've not asked for that determination from the building inspector. We've just sort of acquiesced to the public hearing process, because this board's far more familiar with this plan at this point than the building inspector.
Well, I think the board does have, say in that, because there's a condition in the special permit that specifically says, you know, if there are modifications to the plan, a public hearing process does need to be.
I'm only going off of Attorney Fox's memo to the board, where he indicated that, you know, essentially we would need a determination from the zoning enforcement officer that this was in substantial conformance, or else we have to go to the board for a public hearing.
When would a public hearing get scheduled for?
It depends on when they make their submission. I can, email with Kevin regarding what's required for that, and then hopefully we can get something, I agree with Kevin, we probably can get something set up for early 2020. Personally, I just caution the board again, I am hesitant to release any bond money, particularly when we're only talking about a few months here. Let's get through the public hearing process and then talk about a bond release. We've had instances previously on other projects, even with this, where we've released too much and then we're in a bind, so I'm a little nervous.
Well, I know it doesn't seem like a lot of time, but when it's your $30,000, it's a lot of time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
There was a comment that there were other things also that weren't on this list that we believe are out of compliance. One is in front of lot 3. I believe in one of Fred's reports was that it did not meet requirements in terms of how deep it was and how wide it was, and I believe it kind of fell off the list because it was determined that it would be too difficult because there were trees there and telephone poles to make that conform to what it should be.
No, I don't think that that's the case. I think with those swales, that some of them were determined to be adequately sized, even if they were not constructed exactly per plan, and that was vetted through the Ducharme and Dillis and Mr. Hanway's discussions during this process.
And the soil construction is not in the regulations, like the, like that slope of the road, first one.
Do you have anything to say about those?
I don't recall us saying that it was adequately sized. What is correct is what Kevin said first, the resident, and about, the lots were built, the lots were graded, the driveway was then sort of put in, and the swale was fitted in to, we've talked about this before, was fitted into what room there was, and it didn't have the adequate side slopes of 3-to-1, especially on the house side, the far side of the driveway. It goes up steeper at a 1-to-1, give or take, or something like that. It was, once again, I guess, accepted that that would be okay during, this is 2 years ago anyways.
Any other thoughts from the board?
I don't know if anything, I don't remember seeing anything from Ducharme Dillis saying, them saying.
Is there any amount that the board would consider here? Honestly, I mean, I think we've operated in good faith and we're not running away. And I think we've demonstrated that during this process.
Can we just, Danielle, do your comments and final thoughts?
You can go back to me. I'm torn both ways. I did just add up, and actually I was incorrect when I first said it, all of the 100% completed items. 100% completed items, including the local C, which we agreed was 100% completed, is 10,530. So I was originally thinking that might be okay to release. However, hearing Erica's concerns, I'm a little hesitant to do that now. So, what do you guys
Did
think?
the original swale fail? What was the status of that?
It was I think it was originally, installed too shallow, and then they went out and they dug it deeper.
So has there been anything since that tested the new?
Yeah, that's why I asked them, I believe, right, is that the
This is not the brand new swale,
Okay, sorry,
right? Am I, is that what you're asking about, the one
Yeah,
that's built?
yeah,
just
has it been tested to its, basically its full capacity? Cause I know with the, you know, the snow and everything going through the winter time, that's gonna test it.
Right, no, it had, I mean, I haven't seen it,
I've been over there,
It's-
we've had some extensive rainstorms Halloween week, and in October, in September, we've had some extensive rainstorms, and we've gone by and taken pictures, and I think we've even submitted some to the board that has not, it's worked fine. It's so defined now, it would be almost impossible for that water to sheet across that land, go up the other side of the swale and over the barn.
Peter, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that throughout this year, since the spring, you know, the applicant has operated in pretty good faith, you know, has come in and talked to us, a lot of times extensively, and appreciate the residents coming in to talk, and it's been a, you know, challenging discussion at times, but I think we're all, you know, appreciate everyone trying to work together to sort things out. And, you know, I believe that you guys aren't going away, and I appreciate coming in to talk to us and work with us and things. You know, I think that with the first one, you know, and you know, us kind of assuming that, you know, $3,200 or the whole money would cover that is, I don't think we can really make that assumption. So I would, you know, I'd rather not release any money until we at least, you know, have, you know, an estimate on what it would cost if that did have to be redone, and if we came to an agreement on what that would cost, and, you know, then I'd be open to, with these other things, discussing that. So I feel like tonight, you know, just better to wait until we at least have that, whether it's the public hearing, or at least have a discussion on what it would cost and an agreement on that. So that's my opinion.
So if we do have a public hearing and we do agree to the variances, how soon could someone appeal, or how long would it take for someone to appeal?
Sure, so once the board, makes their decision, we have 14 days to, file that with the town clerk, and then at that point, that triggers the 20-day appeal period. So it's 20 days, and then once that's over, and if no one has appealed, then the decision is final, and at that point, I would say the board is free to release, you know, money.
It's just 20 days.
No, it's just
Just
20 days.
calendar. I
Just
couldn't
20
remember,
calendar days.
sometimes it's working days.
Yeah, for when that's that long, it's just.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree that you've acted in good faith, but yeah, I don't think we can release money tonight.
Yeah, once again, you know, I agree that you guys are doing everything, but we do probably gotta dot our i's and cross our t's on the hearing. So,
Okay, well, we thank you for your time, and
So can you get, so they have to kick off the process of a hearing?
we'll get that process started.
I think we're in good shape. I think there was very few items where
Yep.
we need to wait to go through, but,
Oh, I agree. We're making progress.
just
Mr. Chairman, can I make just one suggestion? I know there was a statement made with regards to other issues that weren't complete or deviate from the plans. And I think that there really is two different types of deviations. One is sort of the important deviations that actually deviate from your zoning bylaws, which is, you know, this 4% grade rather than the 8% grade falls into that category. And I know there's at least one other in criteria 5A 10 in your decision, having to do with the turnouts. And I know at the last meeting, you had discussed, you really were only concerned with that one that they did the paving on this morning. But I think that there is still some minor deviations on the others. So I think whatever request for relief is submitted by the applicant should include that, just so, you know, we have everything done appropriately and nothing's left for interpretation at a later date.
We'll call out the deviations and then we'll add our catch-all as per the as-built plan, which shows everything. So that's what I think we envision this process looking like, and I don't think any of these are a secret at this point. We've talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you in January then? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Is Fred here?
Yep.
I mean,
I was gonna say,
Andy.
he didn't jump out, he just disappeared.
Hi, Mark, welcome back.
I meant to say Andy, and then I looked at you and I said Fred. What discussion will do here? Hey, Andy. Good evening. You look cold.
What's that?
You look cold. So we're here for an update on you securing a contract with a paving company and the board to discuss progress of securing an engineer to conduct construction oversight. So we did get a quote from an engineer for, what was it, 10,000 for all the work, Erica?
It was 16,000.
Was it reduced?
Initially, when I had reached out to Mitch, they were trying to figure out who on their staff had the availability to do the work. So they kind of went to both their transportation, yeah, they went high essentially, on the high side. So they said it could be 16 to 20K. When they came, well, actually, I had emailed him saying, you know, we were really looking, you know, for more junior level engineering that charges more on that
Have
$100
any
per
interns?
hour. No, we want someone that's, you know, experienced. So, yeah, so 10,000 is what they were able to,
I think that's more
yeah,
reasonable.
And,
Yeah.
and is that in line, Fred, with what, you know, you would have charged for all that work?
I personally haven't looked at, I haven't gone through that, but it's probably 100 hours, and 100 is 10 grand, coincidentally. You know, matters, it can be a little less, can be more, but over the 3-week, almost 4-week period would be about that much time.
So it's in the
Yeah,
range.
when you think, yes, quickly look, thinking of it, yes.
All right, so there's that. So, any updates on anything, Andy?
We've had significant progress. The aggregate, you know, like any company that's gonna be doing us substantial work like that, they wanna know how they're gonna get paid. So, aggregate submitted to me, I'm making a long story short, but submitted to me this afternoon, a joint payment agreement. And I didn't bring it because there was significant parts of it that were not good. So they're gonna change it, but their lawyer, basically they're willing to accept a joint check. If the town will agree, when they release, when the work's done, and you're releasing the bond, there you want an agreement with the town that the check will be made out to them and me. Joint check.
How does that work?
Yeah.
Why would they want that?
Wouldn't they,
Why don't they just want it?
why wouldn't they want it just to them?
Well, we talked about it at the last meeting, and you actually thought that might be an issue.
Did you
Releasing
look
my
into that?
money, you know, to somebody else. So,
right.
they're
So
willing
town
to accept
council
the
has
joint
weighed
check.
in a little bit on it, and, he was fine with that agreement. He just asked, did you get my email today? He had asked that,
Yep. They put that language in. They
put
didn't
the-
have a problem.
great. Oh,
They didn't
great.
have a problem with the language, but their attorney's first draft had had language in it that was just incorrect, so I didn't bring it. So they were going to try to have a redraft to meet, you know, between the time they went over with them at 5 o'clock in tonight's meeting, but I didn't get it.
So, but town council agrees that
We can do an agreement like that. Obviously, they'll need to review any final language before the town signs off
Sure.
on it.
But they prefer it actually be made out jointly?
They just said it's
It's okay.
it's okay. They didn't
Okay.
really weigh in one way or the other on that.
Well, cause it's, you know, normally we would just give it to Andy anyway,
And then I would pay them.
Yeah,
yeah.
So this is
Okay.
a little added protection for them, or
Okay.
significant added
Yeah.
protection, but.
so either party could cash it.
No.
No, they both need to sign it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
both.
It's to say that the town wasn't doing some funny business and
okay.
releasing money just to them.
So it's almost like a cosigner too.
Oh.
No, no, no,
Right,
it's,
right,
it's,
right.
It-
It's a cosigner.
from their perspective, they're looking at it like, I can't get the money and not pay them.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since Andy's on it.
That's fine.
They're protecting themselves.
Gotcha.
And that's
gotcha,
fine with me, because I was gonna use it to pay them anyway. So, you know, like a lot of times when you're doing a big job, like when you're going to hire somebody, they'll want a letter or some proof that you have a loan in place if you're building something
Yeah.
to pay for it.
Should be.
But since
Okay,
there's no lender here, it's the town, yours.
Gotcha, gotcha.
okay, so we're good with,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
town council just in his email to me had said, if there's not time to get the agreement together by tonight, the planning board should vote to authorize the chair or you to sign an agreement to that effect, subject to town council's approval, just to expedite the process.
Right.
okay,
So we can have a vote for that.
That would be very helpful, and it's very practical because that is probably the, once that joint check agreement is in place, the next thing that would be done is a contract with them. And their, would start next, their first availability is Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday. And there is a little bit of work, there's some work to do before they come in. So, yeah. it's-
That would be raising all the structures.
Well, on Mill Pond Road, we can't, the first thing that would be done over there is milling and reclaim work. After that's done, where it's been reclaimed, you would put down a new binder and then raise the structures for top coat, before top coat. But on Cider Circle and Old Stone Circle, there is no milling. So, and this is reminding me of something I wanted to request, if possible. They can start on Saturday. Next week is supposed to be a warm week. If
warm
they
but
can-
raining.
Possible, I
Yeah.
know, but I don't know if we could work on Saturday.
Well, can we before we
Yeah,
get to that,
I just didn't want to, it's separate.
you need a motion to,
I do, so when do you, I apologize, when do you think you'll have that agreement, because I'm
I
on
think I'm
vacation
gonna
next
have it
week.
tomorrow. I spoke directly with their attorney and it was around 5 and she said she had to leave at 6:30. She was gonna try to do it, but obviously she didn't get it finished.
So maybe in the vote, we can also add maybe the town accountant to that list of people that could sign off on it, just because I'm worried that by the time town council reviews it, I won't be available to sign it. Or unless Eric, you would like to come in if you have availability, it's up to you, or we could see if, you know.
It might be, if the town accountant, she's always
We
around.
can
but-
sort of add that to the list
I
and
mean,
then.
she's here, right? So
She's here, so it might be easier
what,
for you.
does she doesn't work Friday though, or,
Yeah, our offices are closed on Friday.
so it'd have to be Thursday?
It'd have to be tomorrow or Monday.
You're here not here next week?
I'm not here next week.
But the town accountant, she's not on vacation or something?
Next week? I don't think so. She was just on vacation, so I think she'll be here. Pretty safe to say it.
And she's in town anyway, right? Town
Yeah,
accountant.
her office is right there.
No, but, no,
Lives in town.
Oh, lives in town. Yeah, she does.
yeah, so
But
she's
I-
around, as long as she's not gone. Correct. Doesn't have to be, like, I'm just saying, if she was not working on Monday or Tuesday, she's around, she could sign the paper or something, right?
I assume she's gonna be working next week. She
Okay.
literally just came back from Spain, so I don't think she's planning on taking a
Okay.
vacation next week.
So I'm good with, you know, making a vote to
Oh.
allow Erica or Ninochka.
wait, I thought the motion was to allow a joint agreement. Is the motions, what is
The
they
motion
need?
would be, to authorize the chair or you, meaning you was
Yeah.
me, to sign an agreement to that effect, subject to town council's approval. So,
Okay, so I can make a motion to allow the check to be made out to both Andy and, Aggregate, or whoever you have doing the paving, and allow that agreement to be signed by either Eric, Erica, or the town accountant per town council approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Um,
Okay, so sorry, now we can move to the Saturday.
First, real quick, so the agreement that was made with Aggregate was, they were okay with, it was contingent upon successful inspection from
Oh, yeah, they
town
have.
engineer and all
Yeah,
that,
that's,
okay.
yeah, it's,
And where were we on that letter? You don't need that letter from us anymore, or you still do? Doesn't, you don't need that?
This is,
Sounds
I
like you
know
passed
that
that.
they're probably gonna incorporate a couple of things into this joint check agreement. They're probably gonna say, you know, have the approximate amount of 250,000 is being held by the town,
Yeah.
which is true. And I think they're also gonna wanna have in there, Eric, the breakdown of what it's for. Of the 253, how it's allocated, because they're not getting all the money.
They want to schedule values?
Well, yeah, which exists already, so, but they're gonna wanna be able to take a look to make sure that the work they're doing is, you know, covered by the money. They wanna know where they are
okay.
relative to that, so.
What do we have for that line item? Do you know? I don't know.
I think it was like 90,000 or something.
No, it's more than one line item.
Yeah,
Right.
there's
Is this the curbing, sidewalks, binder,
Yeah.
milling?
Yeah,
It's a
Top
big-
coat.
Big chunk of it.
yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
I think you're probably holding more money than it's costing, so. But they just wanna know what the number is you're holding, because they're gonna probably put in that agreement, that's the amount that's gonna be released
Anything associated
when the
with
work's done.
20-foot binder,
No, I think we can just
yeah.
grab the pieces from here that are associated
Yeah.
with paving. And
So are they basing their estimate on how much money you have in the bond?
Well,
No.
we just got done with 147 saying that, you know,
No,
just the line items don't necessarily have to match up if we're holding the
No.
money. The money, all of our bond could go towards paving if it, you know, needed it.
Well,
It's not always
for
good to
inspection and.
No,
Yeah.
no.
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 What I'm saying, if everything else was approved as being done, but we still had, you know, $250,000 for paving, we could use the whole bond towards that. It's not like,
Yeah, but that's
that's all
not,
I'm saying.
they just wanna know, when the work is finished, you know, their work,
And their work, yeah, their work.
their work, how much is the town holding for their work, because that's the amount that, you know, is gonna be basically in a joint check.
Okay.
And if it's off a little bit, that's not the end of the world, they
Yeah.
just wanna know where it is. So,
Okay. Well, we have it.
okay.
I mean, I can do that with Erica tomorrow a little bit, so.
I mean, and as for Saturdays, I just wanna give you guys every chance to get it done. I don't have a problem with on Saturday.
Well,
Yeah, with the
is Nick,
Yeah,
is
I'd like
Nick gonna
to-
be available on Saturday?
Well,
we didn't talk about doing Saturdays now.
I mean, we could ask.
So it could be contingent upon Mitch
Yeah,
having
exactly.
someone that could be available on
Right.
Saturday. Are the residents okay with work on Saturday?
I assume they'd be fine with it if it's gonna get done.
I have a problem with it here.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
perfect,
just
I
wanna
agree.
make sure.
Yeah.
What Saturdays are we talking?
There's only a few.
Between now and December 10th is the extension we gave last Thursday, so this needs to be done before December 10th.
So we're talking a week from 10 days from now,
Yeah.
9 days from now. And that would be the start, would be 9 days from now.
No, the work has to be, the paving has to be done before December 10th.
And the
So,
start date would be 9 days from now.
Well, not necessarily, it's when the paving company could start.
There's other work
You would
prior
There's
to
some
it.
other work that could be done before, so.
Also, it's weather related.
it is weather related, so you said technically the aggregate could start the 23rd,
26th, it's a Saturday, actually.
26th is a Tuesday,
Yeah,
Oh.
23rd is a Saturday.
23rd is a Saturday.
It used to be the 23rd, it's the 23rd, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's the
because
23rd.
originally 16th,
Yeah.
next Saturday is the 23rd. So
Yes,
potentially, there would be nothing done this, there would be nothing done on this Saturday, but the 23rd, 30th, or the 7th are 3 Saturdays where work could potentially be done.
Yeah, but there's also other work,
No, I know.
so, if you, I'm not saying the other work has to be done this Saturday, but it's possible.
Like if you get the guy to raise the structures or.
Yeah.
All right, so basically,
Start
there's 4 Saturdays between now and December 10th that work could be happening.
We'll take out Thanksgiving
Yeah,
weekend.
the 30th is Thanksgiving. Do we?
Oh, yeah,
Take
can we
that out.
exclude that?
Yeah, I think
That,
so.
I would say,
Just
I
for,
don't know.
Ah. I mean, we would like it, just, I don't,
Exclude Thanksgiving.
no, not Thanksgiving.
No.
Thanksgiving is excluded,
yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
but I'm talking about
What do
that
the
Saturday.
residents
What,
say
what
on
do
the
you guys
Saturday of the holiday
feel
weekend?
about those 4
Yeah,
Saturdays?
ice on the road, though.
They just-
I'd be more worried I am all for getting this
Okay.
on Saturday.
If you guys
Whatever
are
Saturday
okay with
works,
that,
just
we'll
let
allow-
him get it done.
Work to be on all 4 Saturdays.
Yeah.
Nighttime, Sundays.
You can't do that, you
It's
can't
never
do that,
past 5.
unfortunately, no.
So generally speaking, it wasn't the residents that lived in the development that were ever concerned with Saturday construction, it was the abutters
Oh.
that were
Yeah, but-
adamantly against it. So
But
all
they
I'm
want to.
saying
Yeah.
is that I will send a courtesy email to those abutters to let them know that the board
Just,
approved it. Cause in the past, we would give them notice and they would
Yeah.
come and
I would say
Obviously, we don't
we're at
have
the
that.
end here where we're trying to give any
Yeah.
opportunity
We're trying to
where the
all work
road can
together
be
on this.
completed,
yeah,
Last place.
Thank you.
to potentially be approved.
but
in
I
May.
just
We may
don't
not
want
use
them
them, it's just that.
Yeah,
I'll let the police department know as well.
Yeah,
yeah.
so we need to make a motion.
We may not use them.
Oh, yes, definitely for the Saturday construction.
I doubt that the people that work for the paving company will wanna work Thanksgiving weekend, but
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, if the weather's this kind of year.
You never know.
Right.
And it
If you
depends
can-
on the engineer too.
Yeah.
Construction's crazy right now, and they'll do.
Yeah, so
I wanna give you
the
guys every
motion,
chance to conclude it.
the motion I will make is, we will allow, work on Saturdays between now and December 7th, contingent upon our inspector being available on Saturdays.
Sometimes the work that we're doing doesn't need an inspector. Like
Continue.
removal
I
of, removal of, like we have curbing to take out. If we need an inspector there, we would, but not everything.
So make sure the work you do on Saturdays doesn't, either doesn't need an inspector, or we have an, or he's
Oh,
there.
we would do that.
That's what we-
Yes, yeah, I understand that.
I'll second the.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright,
Thank you.
currently getting emailed by all the, actually.
Oh, but I'll be on vacation now.
Anything else to discuss, or we good?
The engineering, niche engineering?
We have to approve the contract or something.
Just to prove that, I guess that we'll go with niche engineering.
Yeah, I'm just glad they brought it down, cause I agreed with you, the 16K I thought was.
Well, I mean, Andy foots the bill anyway, right, so. doesn't-
No, but the board selects the consultant, so.
We need to
that's-
make a
that's
motion
all.
to allow, or accept Mitch's
Accept niches,
proposal.
yeah.
And
I'll
the
make-
No, I
do,
understand
okay,
that.
sorry, so the funds for this?
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
thank you, that's very important, so we don't have funds for this. So that needs to be done as soon as possible. Because the money that we're holding right now, I also need that to cover Fred's time for raising the structure in the next couple of days.
There's nothing in the bond estimate for it. The bond estimate doesn't include that.
Raising the structures?
No.
Oh,
Engineering work.
No, we knew each other.
Probably in the
We-
future, it's a good idea.
We spent a lot of time together.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but we've grown old together.
That's for sure.
I had hair then.
So,
So I'll make a motion to accept niche, to perform the paving observations and inspections.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
I had a question, Brady Jason, 75 Old Stone. Andy, can you just speak to, and perhaps I misheard you, to the fact that you might have alluded to that Old Stone does not need the billing to be completed, and also the timeliness of bringing the second company in to begin that mill work? Are they readily available? I know aggregate can start on the 23rd, But our understanding from the last meeting was that, 5 to 7 days of prep work needed to be done. I'm just curious as to whether or not that contractor is readily available to start later this week or early next week.
I have to ask them. I don't know, they don't, they don't hold open spaces for people that are in a maybe position,
Okay.
but, so I.
And then did I mishear about Old Stone not having to be milled, and just what the reasoning is for that?
It's milling, it's something, milling and reclaim work, it's determined by the town inspector if it needs that. And those,
Yeah, I think we defined areas that need to be done.
There's certain areas where if you look, the binder is still fairly rough, so it should adhere well. There's other places where from plowing or whatever, it's
Really
smooth,
smooth.
it's very smooth and the top coat won't adhere there, so they need to come in and rough that up basically. It's like trying to refinish a cabinet, you have to rough it up and then the top coat adheres to it.
So I know DPW had defined those areas in an email.
I
Are
don't
we
recall all the
going-
areas, but
Are
Old
we-
Stone was the latest binder. And I believe there's some patching to do, for instance, where that cone was for a while.
Yeah.
Things like that.
It was actually patched, but
What's that?
it was done already.
Right, and there's patching on side of Circle, I think, but it might have already been done. But anyways, I don't recall the exact spots. Most of it was on Mill Pond, I will say that.
Question, so, is it possible, because you're going after this week, right?
After tomorrow.
So Friday's out. So,
That's why
you
we
just
had
answered
it
my question.
yesterday.
I was just trying to see if there was any way for you to, have a meeting with the person from Niche.
We spoke, that's what I
Oh,
said.
you-
No, that's what we said last Thursday.
No, I know,
Okay.
so,
And then they can't meet, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not available because this person's coming off a different job, so they're available starting Monday. Actually, this Saturday's probably out, now that I think about it, because they could start Monday. And just in terms of process, I need the check in hand before we'll sign that contract, because I can't sign a contract that we don't have funds to fulfill.
is it possible to reach out to Niche and, either have the person who's gonna be doing the inspection just even have a phone conversation with
Well,
them?
so
Or-
I talked with, not the person that's
Okay.
gonna actually be doing the inspections, but the project manager.
Yeah.
I talked to him about it, and, what's gonna need to happen is there's some on-site meeting, probably with DPW, because they're gonna need to be filled in on what's going on and what needs to be milled, what needs to be replaced, and all of that. So I'm thinking the best thing is, since Fred's not gonna be around, that we'll have to see what Joe's availability is and have him go out there and
Okay, meet
review
with
with the
the guy from
engineer, so that
Niche,
he
okay.
knows exactly what's expected, because at this point, they're really
I just-
coming
yeah,
in
'cause
at
I
a
do-
disadvantage, so.
Exactly.
And Joe's 100% up to date with all the areas, he's walked with you guys, so.
Well, that was a while ago that he did that, was that last spring or
Yeah,
last
I
fall?
think
A year ago?
It was a while ago.
He
Could
did
you-
send
could
an
you- Could you
email.
touch base with Joe before you go on vacation, Fred?
Yeah, Joe's email said the different areas, station to station and so forth. But I can touch base with him, but
Yeah. Just get
So-
Joe, just you and Joe be in line, and then if he's gonna be the,
Are you around tomorrow?
I was more, but now I won't be around in the morning at all. I'll have to check about the afternoon, but I won't be around in the morning.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be nice to, probably,
There is a plan that you might recall that shows the curbing.
Yep.
That Fred had put together.
I just wanted to maybe go over one more time, because it was.
Well, that's why I wanted to have a meeting with everyone to do
Yeah.
that before I left, but it hasn't happened.
Are you back late next week?
Excuse me?
Are you back late next week?
Possibly, I'm gone technically through Friday, but might be coming back earlier,
Oh,
but
oh,
right
so
now-
that you will be around actually when the.
Then I'm gone the week after that.
Oh,
That's
so-
why we didn't wanna have
Oh, you're
me,
taking
then
2
them,
weeks
me,
off.
then them.
Oh, you're taking 2 weeks.
Right, and with a week in between, and I'll be here. But we didn't wanna have it all bouncing back and
Oh,
forth,
yeah.
inspection wise, wanted to be
Consistent.
consistent.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
That's why we,
So you're gone next week, be here the following.
and then I'm gone the week of the
But there could be,
29th,
depending on when
30th.
paving happens, maybe there could be a meeting the following
Right.
week. And while you wouldn't be doing the inspections,
Right,
at least
still
maybe there
meet
could
with
be
them, right.
a meeting just to,
Yeah.
get everyone.
All right, are we good? Anything else?
Just a lot of steps to.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous because tomorrow's my only day and then, well, I guess I'll be around Monday night, but,
So you're out next week, are you out for 2 weeks?
no, I'm just out next week.
Just
I
out
don't
next
have
week.
babysitter coverage, so I'm forced to take a vacation.
But do we take care of everything, planning board, we're not in the way of anything? We have everything in line, organized for us?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So hopefully when we meet on the 11th, things are good.
I hope so too. That's what everybody's working on.
All right, great, thank you Andy for coming in.
Thanks.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Later, Randy's.
Bye, Randy's.
You think the school committee's still going?
Start at 6, 3 hours?
Yeah, if we think we have it bad. All right,
Do we wanna?
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, well, actually, hold on.
Meeting minutes, right?
Wait,
No,
do we
there's
have
no
any
meeting
more,
minutes.
do we have any more bylaws stuff to talk about, are we good?
We
after all
can just-
that?
I'll do it next time.
Let's do it next time.
You always say that.
Those two burn me out. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.